I didn't expect the story to start like this. I'm listening and suddenly I hear a man say, "For $8 you can have my wife." For a moment I almost think I misheard it. Who talks like that? Who puts a price on a person? And for only $8? The line hits me so hard that I stop everything else in my mind. I want to know what kind of man would say those words, and what kind of life must be behind them. The more I think about it, the more wrong it feels. $8 isn't even enough for a night's stay in some worn-out inn. It's barely enough for a couple of drinks in a dusty saloon. And yet this man says it with no shame, as if he's selling a rusty tool, not a human being. As a listener, I feel something tighten inside me. Anger, shock, curiosity, probably all three. I can almost imagine a few rough men nearby stopping mid-laugh, wondering if they heard him right as well. But what truly pulls me in is that the story doesn't slow down to explain anything yet. There's no hint if this husband is joking, drunk, desperate, or just cruel. His voice sounds too serious, too deliberate, like he's done this kind of thing before. And the silence that follows his words makes everything feel even heavier. It makes me want to lean in closer, because I need to know what happens next, and why anyone would dare to make such an offer in the first place. The moment the story shifts into the Wild West, I can almost feel the heat settling on my skin. Not the warm, gentle kind. This is the harsh, dry heat that bakes everything it touches. The kind that makes wooden buildings crack and makes tempers even quicker to rise. As I listen, I'm pulled into a place where dust never really settles, where people walk with their heads low, not out of shame, but out of caution. This is a world where every man carries a story he doesn't like to tell, and every woman learns to survive faster than she learns to smile. I picture the town before I even realize it. A row of uneven wooden shops, a saloon with swinging doors that creak every time someone enters, and a sheriff's office that looks like it's held together more by hope than nails. Horses tied loosely to posts, their tails swishing at flies. A few men gambling outside, cards slapping against a makeshift table, coins clinking sharp and rude in the dry air. The sound of distant gunshots doesn't surprise anyone. Maybe it's target practice, maybe it's a warning, maybe it's a settling of old grudges. In this place, all three possibilities feel normal. As a viewer, I find myself absorbing it all. I can almost smell the mix of sweat, whiskey, and dust. I can hear the low hum of arguments brewing, deals being whispered, promises made but rarely kept. It's strange how alive the place feels, even though so much of it seems tired, worn, and beaten by time. There's no softness here, nothing gentle. Even the sunlight feels sharp, almost like a knife on the skin. And in the middle of all this roughness, I sense something else, a kind of unspoken tension. People here walk with quick glances over their shoulders. Their boots make heavy sounds on the ground, each step a reminder that the wrong move could get someone hurt. The Wild West isn't just a location. It's a mood that sinks into anyone who walks through it. It's a reminder that laws exist only as long as someone strong enough stands to enforce them. Then I start noticing the kind of people who live here. Men with faded hats pulled low, faces hidden by dust and days of unshaved beard. Women who move quietly between buildings, carrying buckets, sacks, or children, always working, always watching. And then there are the drifters, the ones who don't stay long, the ones who appear and disappear like mirages. These are the people who the town gossips about for a few days and then forgets entirely. Yet even in such a place, some stories stand out. Some events echo louder than the rest. And the moment I hear that one man had the nerve to offer his wife for $8, I realize this story must have shaken the town in a way few things could. Because in a place where violence is common and life is cheap, a moment like that still manages to silence the usual noise. As I imagine the backdrop, I see a saloon that's louder than all the others. The floorboards are rough and stained from countless bar fights and spilled bottles. The bar itself is scratched and dented, each mark probably carrying a story that no one bothered to write down. The piano in the corner plays uneven tunes, sometimes lively, sometimes tired, depending on whether the pianist has been drinking. A handful of men slump on stools, their eyes half focused on their glasses, while others stand in heated arguments, daring each other to take the first swing. This is where the husband from the story fits so easily. A man who drinks more than he works, someone whose loud voice fills the room not with confidence but with frustration. I can almost see him leaning against a table that wobbles from his weight, a half-empty bottle in his hand, his words slurred but sharp enough to sting. He's the kind of man the town knows too well, the kind they avoid, because trouble follows him like a shadow. And his wife, I try to picture her. Not in detail because the story doesn't give me that. But I imagine the way she stands, quiet, worn down, shoulders slightly dropped as if she carries the weight of someone else's mistakes. Maybe she's used to being ignored. Maybe she's used to being spoken for instead of being allowed to speak for herself. Her eyes probably tell more truth than her voice ever gets the chance to. When she hears her husband offer her for $8, I imagine she doesn't even flinch anymore. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because she has learned to hide her reactions to survive. And the rancher, he hasn't even appeared yet in the story, but I can already sense how different he will feel compared to this environment. Someone calm in a place filled with chaos. Someone steady in a world full of unpredictable people. The kind of man who walks into town only when he has to, not because he enjoys the noise, but because he needs supplies or information or maybe just a break from the endless stretch of land he works on. Yet before he enters, the town itself sets the stage. The rough winds blowing through the streets, carrying dust that sticks to skin and clothes. The quiet mutters of people doing their best to get through another day. The sharp clang of metal from the blacksmith's corner. The soft thud of boots stepping onto wooden floors. The feeling that everyone is just one bad decision away from trouble. Listening to this atmosphere build piece by piece, I find myself leaning further into the story. I want to know how the rancher walks into this mess. I want to see how he reacts when he hears that shocking offer. I want to understand how a single sentence can cut through the noise of a Wild West town and make even the roughest men pause. Everything in this setting seems designed to test people, push them, break them, and sometimes reveal who they truly are. And it makes me wonder what this world will reveal next. When the rancher finally steps into the story, I feel the entire mood shift, even though nothing is said outright. He walks into that dusty town the way a storm rolls in, quiet but impossible to ignore. He isn't flashy. He isn't loud. He doesn't carry himself like someone looking for trouble. But there's something about the way he moves, something steady, something grounded, that makes me pay attention to him instantly. Maybe it's the dirt on his boots, the sunburn on his neck, the tired patience in his eyes. He looks like a man who has worked the land his whole life and learned to keep his words few and his actions sharp. As I watch him enter the street, I can almost hear the sound of his boots on the wooden boards. Slow steps, not rushed. A man who knows there's no point in hurrying in a place like this. He ties his horse outside the general store, gives it a small pat on the neck, and glances around as if taking the town's measure. Not judging it, just understanding it. That's the thing about him. He doesn't seem surprised by anything, but he doesn't seem hardened either. He's just aware. Inside the saloon, the air shifts when he walks in. Not dramatically. No one gasps or whispers his name, but people notice. Maybe because he isn't stumbling like the drunks. Maybe because he isn't yelling like the gamblers. He moves with intention, like someone who knows what he wants and doesn't need permission to get it. He steps to the counter and nods once to the bartender, who pours him water instead of whiskey. And that choice alone tells me more about the rancher than any introduction could. A man who drinks water in a place like this is either foolish or extremely disciplined. Something in me guesses he's the second. As he stands there quietly, the husband and wife come into focus. They're only a few steps away, but their world feels completely different from his. The husband is slumped on a stool, one elbow on the counter, a half-empty bottle near his hand. His eyes are bloodshot, his face red, Not from the sun, but from the alcohol that seems to fuel him more than food ever does. His voice carries across the room, loud in a way that demands attention, even though no one wants to give it to him. The wife stands beside him, hands clasped in front of her, shoulders slightly hunched. I can't hear her breathe, but I can imagine how shallow and careful it must be. She keeps her gaze low, staring at the ground as if afraid someone might look into her eyes and see everything she's trying to hide. Every now and then the husband snaps something at her, his tone sharp, careless, cruel. She doesn't respond, she doesn't fight back. She just absorbs the words like someone used to being bruised by more than fists. The rancher turns his head slightly, just enough to see them from the corner of his eye. He doesn't stare. He doesn't react. But I can tell he notices everything. The way the husband grips the bottle, the way the wife flinches at certain words, the tension in their posture, the unspoken story hanging between them like a heavy fog. And then the moment happens again, the line that draws the rancher into this mess. The husband leans back, slams his bottle on the counter and says loudly, $8. That's all she's worth to me. He laughs after he says it, a harsh, broken laugh. The kind that makes even the piano pause for a second. As a viewer, I feel the same punch of shock I felt before, but now it hits harder. Because now I can see the faces behind the words. Now I see the woman's shoulders stiffen, her lips tighten, her eyes squeeze shut for a moment. Not in disbelief, not even in anger, but in familiarity. That's the worst part, she's heard things like this before. The rancher still doesn't react at first. He takes a slow sip of water, places the cup down calmly, and only then does he turn fully toward the couple. His expression doesn't show judgment or disgust, just a quiet calculation, like he's trying to understand the situation before stepping into it. He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't posture or puff out his chest. He simply asks, "Why would you say that?" The saloon goes unusually still. Even the men who pretend not to care glance over. The husband sneers. Why? Because it's true, she's worth nothing. $8 is being generous. The wife closes her eyes again. Not one tear falls, but the silence around her is louder than any sob could be. The rancher doesn't challenge the man. He doesn't argue, doesn't shout, doesn't get emotional. He just studies the wife for a moment, not in a way that makes her shrink deeper, but in a way that tries to see the person behind the exhaustion. Then he looks back at the husband and asks, "And what would happen if someone paid you that $8? The husband grins like he thinks he's winning something. "Then she's their problem. I'm done with her." The rancher looks at him for a long moment, then reaches for his jacket pocket. His movements are slow, gentle, almost intentional enough to make people nervous. But instead of pulling out a weapon, he pulls out money. $8 exactly. He places it on the counter, not near the husband's bottle, but right between them, the coins clinking with a sound that somehow feels too loud for the room. The husband stares. The wife's eyes open wide, this time in confusion, not fear. And as a viewer, I feel a chill. Not a cold, scary one, but the kind of chill that comes when you realize the calmest person in the room is about to change everything. The rancher doesn't say anything else. Not yet. But the way he stands, the way the room watches him, the way the wife's breath catches in her throat, everything inside me knows that this single action is the beginning of something the town will never forget. The coins sit on the counter between them, catching the dim light of the saloon as if they hold a meaning far greater than $8 ever should. For a long moment, nobody moves. Even the dust floating in the air seems to freeze. I can almost feel the entire room holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. And as I watch the rancher standing there, calm and steady, I start to understand that this isn't about money at all. It's something deeper, something heavier, something that even the drunken husband doesn't realize he has just triggered. The husband finally breaks the silence with a rough bark of laughter. He slams his bottle on the counter again, shaking the coins slightly. "Well, I'll be damned," he says almost too loud. "You're actually paying it." His words are mocking, but there's a flicker in his eyes, a quick flash of greed, curiosity, maybe even disbelief. He reaches for the coins with a sloppy swipe, but the rancher doesn't let him finish that movement. He places one hand down on the counter, not forcefully, just firm enough to make the man hesitate. "I'm paying," the rancher says quietly, "because you said the words." The husband squints at him, confused. "Words? What's that supposed to mean?" The rancher doesn't answer immediately. He lets the weight of his own calmness settle between them. Then he says, "You put a price on your wife. If that's what you want, I'm giving you the price you named." The wife doesn't speak. She stands very still, and I can almost feel the mix of emotions inside her: fear, uncertainty, a fragile spark of hope she's too afraid to trust. She looks at the rancher not like someone being rescued, but like someone who has stopped believing rescue is real. The husband finally plucks up the $8, stuffing the money into his pocket with clumsy hands. "Fine then," he snarls. "She's yours now, good luck. You'll regret it." The rancher doesn't react to the insult. He doesn't need to. Instead, he turns to the wife with a gentleness that feels almost out of place in such a harsh setting. He nods slightly as if giving her the choice to follow him or stay. Not ordering her, not dragging her, just offering. She hesitates, her eyes flicking from the rancher to her husband. The husband waves her off, annoyed. "Go on. What are you waiting for? Get out of my sight. I'm done with you." Those words sting more than the earlier ones. They cut deeper, landing with a kind of painful finality. I can see her swallow hard, her fingers trembling slightly as she steps away from him. One step, then another. The room is so quiet that I hear her soft footsteps like they're echoing. The rancher leads her toward the doors slowly, not rushing her. She moves as if unsure whether she's doing the right thing, as if expecting someone to shout "stop" at any second. But no one does. The men in the saloon just watch silently, some with pity, some with unease, some with curiosity about how far the rancher plans to take this. Outside, the sunlight spills across her face, and she squints as if she hasn't stood outside without fear in a long time. The rancher stands beside her, not too close, giving her space to breathe. He doesn't ask questions yet. He waits until she steadies herself. Only then does he speak. "I'm not taking you anywhere you don't want to go," he says. His voice is low and steady, a stark contrast to the aggressive noise she's been living with. She turns her head toward him, searching his face for something. Maybe sincerity, maybe kindness, maybe the absence of danger. Whatever she's looking for, she seems to find it because she slowly nods. He gestures toward his horse. "I have a small ranch a few miles from here. You can ride with me if you want. If not, I'll take you to the marshal. You'll be safe either way." The offer seems to overwhelm her. Tears don't fall, but her throat tightens when she tries to speak. Her voice comes out soft, a little shaky. You don't want anything for the money." The rancher looks at her gently. "I didn't buy you," he says. "I paid to get you out of a bad situation, that's all." As a viewer, I feel something shift inside me. A strange ache, some mix of sadness and relief. It's the kind of moment that makes me realize how rare true kindness is in a world like this. But the wife still struggles to believe it. Her eyes stay wide, searching, confused. She shakes her head slightly, like she's trying to understand something that just doesn't fit into the world she knows. "My name is Anna," she finally whispers, as if speaking it aloud makes her existence more real. The rancher nods once. "I'm William." Names exchanged without judgment, without expectation. It feels like a quiet beginning. But even as they prepare to leave the town behind, I can feel a shadow forming behind the scene. The husband, inside the saloon, watches through the dusty window. His expression has shifted now that the money is in his pocket and the alcohol fog is thinning. The reality of what he's done starts creeping in. I can almost see the moment it hits him. The realization that he didn't just sell an object in a drunken stupor. He gave away someone who knew all his secrets. Someone who had seen him at his worst. Someone who might finally tell the world the truth about him. The anger that begins to bloom across his face is slow but sharp. A different kind of fire than the drunken rage he displayed earlier. This one is cold, dangerous, calculated. And even though he doesn't move yet, something inside me tells me that this isn't the last time we'll see him. Outside, William helps Anna mount the horse, making sure she's comfortable before climbing up behind her. Not too close, giving her space, treating her with a gentleness she's clearly forgotten people can have. They begin to ride away from the town, leaving the noise, the dust, and the broken memories behind. And as they move down the long dirt road, I feel a quiet hope start building inside me. But behind that hope sits a growing tension, a feeling that the husband isn't done, that he's not the type to let things end peacefully, that the $8 he took so quickly is going to become the price of something far more dangerous. As they leave the town behind, the rough noise of the saloon fades slowly, replaced by nothing but the soft thud of the horse's hooves and the long, quiet stretch of open land. For the first time in what feels like years, Anna is surrounded by silence that doesn't threaten her. No shouting, no slamming bottles, no footsteps creeping behind her, just the wind brushing across the dry plains and the steady rhythm of a man who has no intention of harming her. The calm almost feels unreal. As I listen, I can sense she doesn't quite trust it yet. She sits stiffly, hands gripping the edge of the saddle, her eyes constantly darting as if expecting danger to suddenly reappear. William doesn't speak much, but his silence doesn't feel heavy. It feels patient. He lets her breathe. He lets her look around without fear. And maybe that quiet is exactly what she needs, because after they've ridden for a while, she finally gathers enough courage to talk. "It wasn't always like that," she says softly, almost as if she's warning the wind not to judge her story. "He wasn't always cruel." William doesn't push her. He just listens, the way a man listens when he knows someone needs to speak before the words rot away inside them. Anna continues, her voice uneven. "He used to be kind, or maybe I thought he was. We married young, too young. I didn't know what kind of man he really was until the drinking started, and then the temper started, and then everything else." She doesn't have to describe everything in detail. The way she hesitates between words tells me more than the sentences themselves. I can almost picture the nights she spent waiting for footsteps, the days she walked carefully around him like a deer trying not to startle a predator. She talks about broken promises, broken bottles, broken trust. Her voice never grows loud, but the quietness in it carries a weight that makes my chest tighten. William keeps his eyes ahead on the trail, but I can see in the way his hands hold the reins, gentle but firm, that he's listening closely. When she mentions the moment her husband first raised his hand, her voice trembles, but her eyes grow sharper, as if she's forcing herself to remember the truth instead of the excuses she once made for him. "I thought I could fix him," she whispers. "I thought if I tried harder, if I stayed patient, he'd stop." She swallows hard. But he didn't stop. He just got better at hiding it from other people. The more she speaks, the more the weight of her past lifts, not entirely, but enough for her spine to straighten a little, enough for her voice to find steadiness. William doesn't interrupt. He doesn't give her pity or over-comforting. He just listens in a way that makes her feel like her words finally matter. But as they move farther from the town, something else begins to stir, not in them, but behind them. While Anna is finally letting out years of trapped pain, her husband has woken up from his drunken haze back in the saloon. At first, he laughs about the money in his pocket. He buys another drink, slamming the coins down with pride. But the more he drinks, the more reality starts sinking in. The more the laughter dries out of his mouth, replaced by something darker. A few men sitting near him start whispering. I can almost hear their comments, sharp and mocking. "You really let her go. Just like that? Sold your own wife for $8. What kind of man does that?" Those words strike him harder than any punch. Pride, twisted, wounded pride begins to take over. His face twists, his hands clench, and the alcohol suddenly feels like fire in his veins. He realizes he didn't just give away something he considered worthless. He gave someone else the chance to walk away from his control. Someone else now has a piece of power he once used to keep himself feeling superior, and that burns him more than anything. He pushes away from the counter, staggering but determined. Rage steadies his steps in a way alcohol never could. He storms out of the saloon, ignoring the snickers behind him. He heads straight for his horse, muttering curses under his breath. By the time he mounts up, the mutters have become promises of revenge. He's not riding to win her back out of love. He's riding because he refuses to let someone else take what he believes belongs to him, even though he discarded her himself. Back on the trail, Anna senses something, like the faint echo of fear she's lived with for years suddenly stirring again. She glances behind them, her eyes narrowing against the sunlight. "He won't let this go," she says quietly. "Not if he's sober enough to think straight." William doesn't turn around. He simply nods as if he expected this from the moment he placed the $8 on the counter. "He'll follow," she continues, her breath uneven. "He always follows. Apologizes 1 minute, hurts me the next. He doesn't care about me, but he can't stand the idea of losing control." For the first time, William speaks more firmly. "You're not going back." His tone is calm, but there's steel beneath it. Not showy, not threatening, just certain. Anna exhales shakily, and for a moment she lets herself believe she might actually be safe. But as they continue riding, the tension grows. The wind shifts. The trail behind them feels heavier, like it's waiting for something to appear. And I can feel it too, that creeping sense of danger catching up to them. Not fast, but steady. Like a storm rolling across the plains with malicious intent. The husband isn't the kind of man who lets go easily. Not because he loves her, but because losing her means losing control, losing dominance, losing his fragile ego. The sun dips lower as they ride. The shadows stretch longer across the cracked earth. Anna keeps glancing back, the fear in her chest growing with each passing minute. And even though I can't see him yet, I know he's coming. I know he's riding hard, fueled by pride, anger, and the twisted need to reclaim what he believes is rightfully his. William knows it too. He doesn't say it, but the way he holds himself changes just slightly, more alert, more prepared. He's not a man who goes looking for trouble, but he's also not a man who runs from it when it comes. And trouble, without question, is on its way. The last stretch of the trail is quiet in a way that feels heavy rather than peaceful. The sky has turned a dusty orange, the kind of color that tells you the day is giving its final breath before night settles in. Anna keeps looking over her shoulder, and every time she turns her head, I feel my own breath pause, expecting to see a shape emerging from the horizon. There's nothing yet, only the long, empty road behind them stretching like a warning. But the tension in the air feels too real to ignore. William can sense it too. His voice stays calm, but every movement he makes is sharper, more attentive. When the wind shifts, he listens. When the horse's ears twitch back, he notices. He doesn't say it, but I can tell he's preparing for the moment that's been building since the saloon. A man like Anna's husband doesn't swallow humiliation quietly. And the Wild West doesn't forgive men who feel like something was taken from them, even if they gave it away themselves. As the ranch finally comes into view, a small house, a barn, open land that stretches endlessly, Anna's shoulders finally loosen a little. She looks at the place with a strange mix of hope and disbelief, like she's afraid to want safety too much in case it disappears as quickly as it came. William dismounts first, offering his hand to help her down. She hesitates, then places her hand in his. The way he supports her is gentle, steady, nothing like the grip she's been used to. She steps onto the ground, taking in the quiet surroundings. The ranch feels peaceful, tucked away from the chaos of the town. For a moment it seems like a place where pain might fade. But before that peace can settle fully, a faint sound cuts through the quiet air, a distant thud of hooves. Not the slow, steady rhythm of William's horse. This one is faster, aggressive, driven by anger more than need. Anna freezes, and the terror that flashes across her face tells me everything. She doesn't need to turn around to know who it is. William hears it too. He steps slightly in front of her, not grabbing her, not pushing her behind him, just placing himself in a position where he can face whatever is coming. The horse approaches quickly, the sound growing louder, clearer. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows that stretch across the dirt. And then in the distance, a rider appears. He's hunched forward, pushing his horse hard, dust kicking up behind him like smoke. The husband. Even from far away, his rage is unmistakable. His posture is stiff. His hands are tight on the reins. His face is red, twisted, framed by the kind of fury only a man with wounded pride can carry. Every part of him looks ready to explode. He pulls his horse to a stop a few yards away, the animal snorting and stomping from being pushed too far. The man swings off, stumbling a little, though his anger steadies him enough to stay upright. His eyes lock on Anna first, then on William, and there's something wild in them. Something unbalanced, something dangerous. He spits on the ground and snarls, "You think you can take her from me?" William doesn't respond right away. He just stands there, calm as ever, with a kind of stillness that somehow seems more intimidating than violence. The husband steps closer, pointing a shaking finger at him. "She's my wife," his voice cracks. "You don't get to walk off with her like she's some stray." His words grow louder, sloppier. "I didn't mean what I said back there. You knew that. You tricked me." William shakes his head once, not dismissively, calmly. "You named the price," he says, "and you let her go." The husband's face twists and he pulls something from his belt. A gun. It glints in the fading light. Anna gasps and steps back, her breath shaking so hard I can almost feel it. William doesn't move, not yet. He watches the husband's hands more than his face, as if reading the intentions behind the trembling. "You give her back," the man shouts, "or I'll take her myself." The threat hangs in the air like smoke. Everything is so still that I can hear the wind rustle through the dry grass. Anna's eyes fill with fear, but there's something else there too, a flicker of exhaustion, of being tired of living under this man's shadow. She whispers, "Please don't." But her husband doesn't even look at her. His madness is focused on William, and William alone. The rancher finally steps forward, not quickly, not aggressively, but with a kind of steady confidence that makes the husband hesitate for just a second. "She's not going back with you," he says lightly, not shouting, not threatening, just stating a fact. The husband raises the gun higher, his hand shaking violently. "Then you're going to die for her." The moment slows. The air feels thick. The sound of metal clicking fills the silence. Anna screams, not loud but raw, the kind of sound pulled from the deepest part of her fear. William doesn't flinch. Instead, his hand moves to his own gun, not rushed, but fast enough to tell me he's been in moments like this before. He draws it smoothly, aiming with a steadiness that contrasts completely with the husband's wild trembling. For a split second, the world hangs between two breaths. The husband fires first. A deafening crack splits the air, echoing across the open land. Dust kicks up near William's feet. But before the sound even fades, another shot rings out, William's shot. Clean, sharp, accurate. The husband stumbles back, dropping his gun as his legs give out. He hits the ground hard, the fury leaving his body all at once. He groans, his breath ragged, his pride shattered along with his threat. The silence that follows is thick, heavy with everything that almost happened. Anna sinks to her knees, not because she's weak, but because her body finally releases everything she's been holding inside. William holsters his gun slowly, not looking proud or relieved, just accepting the moment for what it is, a consequence that was bound to come. The dust settles around them, the wind calms, and the trail behind them grows quiet again, finally free of the danger that chased them.